Hi everybody and welcome to this month's journey practice. We are focusing on balance this month. So I'm going to lead you through a warm-up and some specific exercises that will help you to progress to things like crocos, headstands and moving on to handstands. As always with these things, you know your body best. So take it as slow as you need to. If you feel like you need to pause the video, which sometimes is good to get a good grip on one section before moving on, then feel free to do that. These are all just offerings and something new to try. We're just going to start at the back of our mats. I'm just taking a moment to stand in parallel. We're going to take a nice big deep breath in. And as we let it out, we're going to drop our chin to our chest, letting our head be heavy, and we're going to roll all the way down to forwards fold. Once we reach the bottom, we're going to shake the head no, and nod the head yes. And then we're going to bend in the knees, walk the hands out into plank, and lowering all the way down. Taking a small arch in the back and looking right and left. Lowering down, sending the bum back to the heels and the arms long. And then sending the weight forwards into the forearms, tucking the toes under, and pushing the bum high. And then pushing into the hands, 1 and 2. And then bending the knees, walking the hands back in and rolling up. And again, rolling down. And shaking the head no. Nodding the head yes. And this time sweeping the hands from side to side. Coming back to centre, bending in the knees. Transferring the weight into the hands and walking out into the back. Just taking a little moment here, sending the weight forwards and backwards. Before we lower all the way down to the ground. Yep. Opening up your chest, looking right and left. Lowering down, sending the bum to the heels. Arms long. Weight forwards into the forearms, tuck the toes, push the bum high. And then pushing into the hands, coming back to a downward dog. And this time we're going to walk our feet to meet our hands. Bending in the knees, rolling up. And taking a small open with the chest at the top. And again, taking the chin to the chest. Letting the head be heavy, rolling down. Shaking the head no. Nodding the head yes. Bending the knees, placing the hands on the floor, stepping back into plank. Here, we're just going to do really small circles of the wrists. And then we're going to lower down. If you need to drop your knees first, here, that's totally fine. Taking a small arch. And lower. Sending the bum back to the heels, arms low. Sending the weight forwards into the forearms, tucking the toes, bum high. Heels down. Pushing into the hands, straightening up to downward dog. And just taking a little moment here. And then we're going to do really big legs out to the sides to come up. All the way back to the centre, bending in the knees, rolling up, reaching the hands up, and then dropping down. Nice. From here, we're going to bring our elbows, wrists, hands together, and we're going to roll, and then roll in the other direction. And giving them a shake. And go on the roller coaster. way and the other way. Great. And then we're going to flick down, like you're trying to flick paint or water off the end of your fingers. And flicking out. And up. Good, and shake. From here, we're going to go into all fours and we're going to place our hands underneath our shoulders. And we're just going to send the weight forwards and backwards. Here, just loading ever so slightly into the front of our hands. And what I want you to think about is your fingertips. As you go forward, your fingertips are pushing into the ground, and that's what's sending you back. Going forward, push the fingertips. Forwards, pushing the fingertips. Forwards, pushing the fingertips. So that initiation of the movement is coming from my hands pushing down into the ground here in this kind of action. We're going to come back into all fours again and we're going to go into circles. If your wrists feel comfortable with having weight bearing on them in this position, then you can move these exercises into plank. So I can do the same thing here where I'm going in circles and sending my weight forwards and backwards. You want to aim for maybe kind of 5 to 10 going forwards and backwards, and then 5 to 10 circles in one direction and in the other direction. Once you've done this, we're going to come back into all fours again, and we're going to do some shoulder shrugs. So I'm going to drop my chest down and let my shoulders stay up, and then I'm pushing back up into my shoulders. So I don't want to bend my arms at this point. This is just the movement of my chest. So I'm dropping down and pushing up. Dropping down and pushing up. And dropping and pushing. We'll do one more. And then we're going to let the belly get involved. So as we drop down, we can let the belly really sink down and take the nose and the tail to the ceiling. And then as we push up into the shoulders, we're tucking underneath, bringing the nose to the belly button. And moving through those two positions in your own time. And doing one more wherever you are. And then refinding neutral. 8. We're going to come to sitting. So for shoulders, in handstands, shoulders are super important because they're the building blocks of what is holding you up. So we want to make sure that they're strong and flexible. So this next exercise is a little check-in for yourself to see where you are. It can be helpful to film yourself from the side, or if you have a mirror, then you can have a look on the side to see where you're at. And so what we're going to do, I'll stay this way so you can see, is you're going to be sat on your feet here, kneeling down, and have your hands by your sides with your hands flexed. And we're going to lift the arms up and overhead. And I want you to try and lift them like you're balancing a tray on your hands. But we need to keep your shoulders pushing up, but not letting the ribs flare. So, as I lift up here, I'm pushing, but this wants to stay really nice and closed here. If I let this open and flare and I have a really big arch on my back, that's not going to be helpful for when I go upside down, because you want everything to be stacked on top of the other. So we're going wrists, shoulders, hips, which we'll get onto in a moment. So for this, it's a really great way to check if you're in line, so you can lift your arms up and overhead. And so I want my And we're just going to do this 5 times, lifting them up and overhead. If this feels really accessible and easy to you, you can add in holding a weight here, just like a wrist weight, or you can add in holding something above your head just to load up the shoulders a little bit more. If you find that this is really hard to lift your shoulders above here, then I'm going to give you another exercise in a moment that will help. But we're really trying to reach up as much as you can. I think we've got 2 more. And 1 more. Great. Well done. Give your hands a little shake. So then, from here, we're going to do a similar thing, but this time you're going to be lying on your back. So come to lying down on your back. And you're going to have your feet out in front of you here, and we're going to do exactly the same thing, but you're going to start off by squishing your lower back into the ground. So I'm tilting my pelvis, I'm engaging my core, and I'm thinking about closing the distance between the bottom of my ribs and the top of my hips here. It helps for me if I breathe out at the same time. Here. So once I know that this bit is stuck down to the ground, I'm going to lift my arms up and overhead, trying to keep my lower back down on the ground. And I want to try and get from my shoulders to my fingertips on the floor without this happening. So I don't want a massive flare to happen. I want to keep this really squished down as much as possible. So again, we're going to aim for 5 of those. So squishing down in the belly, we're lifting up and lowering down. And up, breathing in. And lowering down. And again up. Keeping your belly squished down. Lower back touch on the floor. And up. And down. Final one. Lifting up. Good. And relax. Right, so next we're going to make our way to downward dog. If this is your first one of the day, then just take a little moment to walk through the feet, pushing in the hands, feet in the ground, letting the bum drop to one side and to the other, and then finding, settling it back into the center. From here, we're going to lift up onto the toes and drop the knees, and coming into this tabletop position. And then lift the bum high and let the heels come down. Lift up onto toes and drop the knees. And coming up. If you can, keep the knees hovered each time you come down. If that feels too much, then you can drop the knees down to the floor as well. Here, but we're trying to keep the knees floating the whole time if possible. And we're aiming for 5 of these. Good. Once you've done 5, just resettling into your downward dog again. And then from here, we're going to do some elbow bends. So I'm going to let my elbows bend into this dolphin pose here and then pushing back up. And again, we're going to aim for 5. So wherever you can get to, here and pushing up. If it feels too intense to drop them both at the same time, then go left, right, left, and alternating as you move through them. So that would look like this, going left, right, left, left, right. So you're going to do another 5, 4, From this position, we're going to do another little warm-up thing. So we're going to come back into our downward dog here, and we're going to tap opposite hand to outside of ankle. We're just going to do a little tap here. And we're going to do 5 on each side. We're going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. And release down. Great. Hopefully your shoulders and your wrists should be feeling a little bit warmer now. So we are going to first of all have a look at crow pose. So for this to work, our hand placement is really important. You want to feel like you're holding on to the floor. So you can practice by having a piece of paper or a jumper underneath your fingers and you're pulling them back. And as you're doing this, you should feel like your hands are kind of pulling in, and this ridge here of the hand should be nice and flat into the floor, so that you've got your whole palm, and this counts for handstands as well as crow pose. Your whole hand should be making contact with the floor, and it's the fingers that are pulling you in. So, from our tucked position here, we're going to place our hands onto the floor here, and we're going to lift the knees up and place them in and behind the armpits, here, or on the back of the biceps, here. And as I lift up onto my toes, I'm sending my weight forwards, here. And the way that I'm balancing is really using my fingers. So like when you're standing up and you lean forwards, your toes grip onto the ground. It's the same principle when balancing on your hands, that you want your fingers to be doing the work. So when we were doing the exercise earlier, when we were pushing our fingers away, that is really good warm-up for waking up these muscles here. So let's try again. So we're coming into our squat position, bringing the knees to the backs of the biceps, coming high up onto the toes, so that you've got a nice tipping motion as you come forwards, placing the hands on the ground, making sure that they're stacked, wrists, elbows, shoulders. You don't want to be super wide, because then you can really easily face palm, and you don't want to be super tight together, because it's a lot easier to rock over. So nice and stable in parallel. Here, up high, tucking the knees under, tipping forwards, here. Once you get to this point, it feels like you might face palm, but there's just a very slight tip that happens to bring you onto your feet. Off of your feet and onto your hands. Here. And even if you just get a few seconds floating each time, it's waking up the hands, and each time you'll build on more and more seconds floating. So, here. And you can try taking one, and then the other, and then one, and the other. Feel free to stop the video at this point and have a little longer practicing crow there. Okay, next we're going to have a look at headstands. I personally like to do my headstands with my hands in this position and around here. And some people like to do them with their hands flat and with your head in your hands. Either way, you're creating a triangle, which is a really stable base. If this is your first time trying a headstand, then I would suggest having some cushions or something soft behind you in case you roll out of it. Or doing it with a friend or a spot behind you for them to catch your hips to make sure that you don't roll out of it. With headstands, it's really important that your neck feels strong. To make our triangle, I like to measure the distance between my elbows here, like this, and then open up and interlace my fingers. Then, from this position, I'm going to place my hands roughly at the back of my head, kind of where my bun is here, in this position. So they're not on top of my head and they're not all the way around the back. So for me, it's a little bit of a middle between my head and the side of my forearm that is doing the balance. So it's not completely on my head. So here, measure, interlace the fingers, and then I'm tucking my head in and underneath. From this position, my toes are tucked and I'm pushing my legs straight. And then I'm going to walk my feet in as close as I can. The idea is that you want to get your hips stacked on top of your shoulders as much as possible before you even start, because that's our main point of balance there. So, from here, walking in as much as possible. Then, from here, you're going to bend one leg, bring it down, and the other leg, and bring it down. Here. And then we're going to try 1 and 2. Here. And 1 and 2. Down. If you can, try and get into your headstand without a jump. Because as soon as you put force, it's going to make you roll backwards, and we want to try and avoid that as much as possible. Think more about the tucking in the core and the pushing in the hands. So, I'll walk you through that again. Here, pushing the toes up. 1, here, and then I'm pushing into my elbows to bring my other leg up to float. You can stay in tuck, or you can take your legs out to straddle. Out to the side, here. And then we're coming down and releasing. The other way of doing our headstands, similar thing, we're going to measure here, and we're going to place our hands where our elbows were, and then placing the head into the triangle here. And exactly the same as I did earlier, I'm going to push in my hands, and I'm going to bring 1 and 2. And then lower 1 and 2. For this type of headstand, you're really pushing into the hands as much as possible to make the legs lift up. So it's a real balance between the hands and the head. So before moving into handstands, we're going to do one more exercise on the floor that will help with kicking up into handstands and just a bit more transference of weight onto the hands and loading of the shoulders. So we're going to make our way into downward dog. And then from here, I'm going to take my left leg up and away. And then from here, I'm lifting up onto my tiptoes and then lowering down. Here. And we're going to do 5 of those. And then we're going to try and do a little kick. So I'm going to bend in my knee, lower my foot to the ground, and just do a little kick. And coming down. This doesn't have to be very big at all. It's just a little push out of the ankle, just to warm up that feeling of the leg kicking and the ankle pushing, working at the same time. Whilst that is happening, I'm also thinking about the top half of my body, my hands pushing into the ground and my shoulders staying in line. So I'm here, and I'm going to go and kick. Here. Kick. So again, we're going to aim for 5 of those. Let's try with the other leg. So we're going to come back into our downward dog position. we're lowering and we're kicking. You might find that you have one side that feels much nicer than the other. I know I do. It's really common. But that's a really nice way of warming up the ankles, the wrists, the shoulders, and the kicking action. So then when we come to do it against the wall, it doesn't feel totally alien to us. So I'm going to show you some of the handstand exercises in this orientation so that you can see what I'm doing from the side of my body. So the first thing that we're going to do is measure from our feet to our hips, and then place our hands roughly where our hips are, checking that they're underneath the shoulders, and then the fingers are gripping. We're going to step one foot up onto the wall and the second foot up onto the wall, so that we're in this tucked position. From here, we're going to straighten and bend, and straighten and bend. Here. Try not to let this happen where the shoulders are sneaking over the wrists. So we want to keep everything in line. Here. Aim for sets of 3, maybe 3 times, or 3 sets of doing it once. Give yourself a number in your head of where you feel comfortable at to work towards. You know your own body best, making sure that you can do it properly. Once you've done that, then we're going to progress on to lifting the leg up in that L position. So again, we're going to measure this distance, place your hands onto the floor, lifting one foot up, and second foot up, and coming into our rectangle here. Checking that the wrists, shoulders, hips are stacked. We're going to lift one leg up, and then lower, and the second leg up. And lower. Here, and again, choose a number, maybe 3 on each leg, or 1 on each leg times 3 times. You choose your own variation. Great. The next thing that we're going to do is measure from the knee to the foot this time. And you're going to place your hands on the floor, here, facing away from the wall. And again, checking that the hands and wrists are underneath the shoulders, and we're gripping the floor like we did in our warm-up. You can come into your downward dog position, lifting one foot up and using the kick like we did earlier to come up here and find the wall. Then again, we do another check-in. This time the knees are bent. You can just about see in the video, so we're going wrists to knees, and the knees are bent at the top, and they're against the wall, and then we'll come back. Yeah. So you can aim to hold that for 10, 20, 30 seconds, depending on where you're at, keeping your gaze in between the gap of your hands, and constantly feeling that you're pushing up in your shoulders and you're closing in your ribcage. I hope these exercises have been helpful for you. Like I said earlier on in the video, if you want to pause at any point to spend more time practicing, then feel free. If you want to ask me any questions, you can find me on Instagram, or you can come to one of my handstand classes here at BU, and I can talk you through them in more depth. Thank you.